LLMs to derive and decide on. So we are rethinking all of that. So tomorrow we'll be launching the search, the fetch, the browse, the entirety of it. We have launched the agent. Tomorrow we will unveil how we were able to deliver the scale and accuracy as part of it.
Okay, one logistic thing. Can you use the microphone for this point instead? So Dish actually mentioned in a few things, right? In order for agent to be useful, you have to rebuild the browser, you have to rebuild the search, you have to rebuild the fetch. You mentioned the commit from Perplexity. Among other things, right, there is also a security aspect, right? You know, when commit got out, there were plenty of press about, you know, if you use agentic search, it's actually dangerous because of the prompt injection. Fundamentally, you know, agents are subject to that kind of the vulnerability. You ask it to check your Gmail, it may delete all your Gmail. That's part of the reason we built Norton Neo, the secure AI browser. So that's just on the side. But continuing what you just said, clearly we also need to rebuild for payment. But can you stretch a little bit? Like, what's wrong with the existing stretch? Because existing payment, because existing payment is already digital enough. You can, you know, API based. Like, what's wrong with the existing payment?
Very good question. And that's actually, by the way, goes back to the short presentation I gave. In the first slides, the three, again, key bottlenecks or challenges is what we think the existing payment infrastructure are not handling. The first is when we call identity piece, what does that mean? Is when human is interacting with a browser, interacting with a website and some services, usually the first thing you will run into is create an account, right? Unless you are using, for example, gas checkouts, that's a lot of e-commerce platform will offer. However, besides that, you probably will need to create, again, a new account for yourself first. And usually that is where services, website, or enterprise will add a lot of security protection to make sure they're not being exploited by bots, which means they will add CAPTCHA and some other methods to make sure that it's really human doing the work. And that is already blocking majority of the agents to access your service. So that's why, in some way, yes, I agree that some website or service is already having good API access to agent, but unfortunately, before agent access the API, they're already blocked in this process. So the first thing is about identity, and the second is about payments. So interesting thing here about payments is majority of the users in US market or a developed country probably are familiar with the credit card system. But I'm not sure how many of you guys know that how much credit card system will charge you. So they actually charge you 29 cents per transaction plus 3% fee. That's usually you are not, as a consumer, you didn't see that because your merchants or services actually will sponsor that for you. So that's why you are not experiencing that painful experience that how much payment you have to give to Visa or Stripe. And also those card network, for example, will make sure that there's a threshold of chargeback and the card not shown type of metrics that the merchants have to keep under that threshold. So if that threshold has been passed, they will have increasing fines and penalties. So that all makes the credit card solutions actually not suitable to a lot of the behaviors that agent will have. Because if you think about the future, agents will do all the operations and find all the optimized features and services for you. Then when it comes to like digital service, when you are a financial analyst, for example, and you ask Anthropic or Meta, which by the way, before they have been acquired by Meta, a very common and the most desired use case they have is financial reports generated by their agent. And in that case, in order to generate those reports, the agent needs to access some more real-time financial data that's coming from Bloomberg, coming from NASDAQ, and those different data sources, which in that case, you either pay them with hopefully in the future per API call or like micro payments, or you have to pay them like 5-figure annual subscription to get around their paywall. So in that case, if we think about individuals in the future, nobody is going to pay Bloomberg $20,000 per year to just access their API once or twice to create a financial report. So most likely they have to change their subscription or pricing model to make it friendly to agents when it comes to more real-time micropayments. And in this case, credit cards just doesn't work anymore because credit card is too expensive. And plus, some of the solutions like Visa nowadays are launching as a virtual card solution for agent to access based on credit card. One of the challenges they have is they're still relying on the traditional banking rail underlying, which usually is settling or clear in every 24 hours. And again, if we think about the future internet, is agents, trillions of agents are doing collaborations, doing payments and buy and sell activities in real time. That type of capital efficiency or inefficiency is not acceptable anymore. And the third part is, of course, authorization. The reason, and authentication, the reason this becomes so important is you don't want to, this actually is probably one thing that's current browser solution has challenged for, is whenever you are giving a session key or a token to an agent right now, you don't know when the session will be expired unless you go into each of the session token details. In this case, if you're a user, and for example, I don't know how many people are using OpenCloud right nowadays, and have you ever run into this type of concern, or even problems that you give them access, you give them permission to your Gmail, to even like your financial account for something, then you're so worried that they will take something out or they will just randomly send out some email to people. That's all go to the permission scope that you're giving to agent. And remember, it's not just the agent level permission that you are giving to them. It's each of the session, each of the workflow that you ask the agent to do for you. You want to have some guardrail and authentication and authorization you are giving to them. So with that level of delegation, permission, assignments you have to give to agents, to session, and different workflows, that's all going to introduce a lot of the challenges if we're using the current infrastructure to do that. Because the current infrastructure just assume majority of the activities are initiated and controlled by human, which already you are assuming that they know what they're doing and they know when to turn it off.
So the velocity, the granularity is very different in the aging world. When Lynn is one of the organizers of this panel, when she organized that, I don't think she realized that the correlation or I think in order for anyone to build agents, sort of viable agent, they probably need both of your products, right? Because otherwise it's very hard to move forward because you always have some payments, some web interaction. It's a so fundamental infrastructure.
Maybe I
Apparently the mic is not working. Look, I think the last thing she said is probably the most important thing that we are not remembering, which is everything today on the web is built for humans, and humans have limited context, limited patience, limited memory, and when you replace that human with an agent, what happens is that, assuming cost is not a factor, you now replace something that has unlimited memory, unlimited context, and unlimited patience, and most importantly, unlimited scalability. And that means you have to change everything. Today we think of browsing as something like, we call it a browser window. Why is that? Because internet is out there and we are looking through this window. That is not the case anymore. With agents, where you can actually interact, window has become a door now. You can enter, you can execute, you can operate. And you don't want things that were built with a limited context for human to be holding the agent back. It's sort of like, imagine there is an HOV lane in a freeway, and agents are able to go fast, and humans, the other cars can't get inside. You will rebuild everything. Because you now know that they're not going to make mistakes that humans make. You now know that they can actually scale it and execute things with the level of context and memory and speed. Now the question is, how does the infrastructure for that will look like? Scale, accuracy, performance, cost. These are the 4 things that will become critical. And now you have an opportunity to rebuild everything. Now that doesn't mean you throw away everything, but if you are building, like TinyFish, we are not building anything for human user. It is all for agents. And that is extremely liberating in the sense that you're not thinking about the browser bar where there is a favorites and all of that. Those things all go away. The way an agent will look at this, so for example, Procter & Gamble spends hundreds of millions of dollars every year on Tide, the brand. Now imagine a robot is doing your laundry. Apparently, humanoid robots, most people want to outsource laundry first, not cooking, because some people still like cooking. If your robot is doing the laundry, I will tell you the last thing you're going to do for it is buy the laundry detergent. You'll be like, if you can do the laundry and fold it, you might as well buy it. But if a robot is buying laundry, just think the logical process. They're extremely logical, non-emotional, which means we are going in, like we'll take I'm going to Costco, let me take a look at my laundry. I think there is only 2 more weeks left. I'm going to go to Costco, buy another big bowl and keep it next to it. And next thing you know, this is not over after 2 months. We overbuy. And more importantly, we buy the brand. But a robot will not be thinking of Tide the brand. It'll look at like cheese family likes organic vanilla flavored detergent. It can break it down to molecular level, understand that exactly what goes into it. And it doesn't have the patience or lack thereof from looking at the first site and saying, I'm just going to pick one. No, if there are 50,000 pages of result, there are 1 million options. It will know exactly how to read all of them and find the best option. And it will absolutely not care about the brand. Now think about what Procter & Gamble need to do. They spend so much money on digital shelf. When you go to Amazon and search detergent, they fight to make sure there's someone first showing up. If you walk into a Walmart, shelf space is at a premium, they've paid a lot of money. They spend a lot of money, color, advertisement to make Tide. You don't know what the hell goes into the Tide, but you know Tide. All of that is flipped inside out. An agent doesn't know the brand, he doesn't care about which position it could be the 100,000 or the first result, it will know exactly how to go through all of that. It is fundamentally a different way of doing commerce. Now you can understand why payment needs to change, browsing needs to change, agents has to change. Because if I'm looking for the best organic coffee from Nicaragua, I want to find that small family. The reason our company is called TinyFish is because we know AI is going to break the chasm between the haves and have-nots. These hundreds, thousands or thousands and millions of small tour operators and restaurants and hotels and coffee farmers, they won't stack up their websites with AI. But if there is an opportunity for us to browse them like humans do as if connected with an API, that will be a different experience because we all want to go to we want to patronize them too. So it's an amazingly exciting opportunity to make a fair world. I genuinely believe that AI can be an equalizer in this sense, provided we build the infrastructure and then use it properly and responsibly, as opposed to taking screenshot and putting everything into the model to say where to click. That's a quick parlor trick. That's why Perplexity, Comet, and others. Look, Jen, for example, one thing that they're doing is they're extending on privacy and security. Now, that's a good reason for a consumer to say, I want that browser. As opposed to, oh, it looks amazing, first time the mouse is moving itself. That's like a Waymo in a parking lot. It doesn't leave, it's fun. First time you're taking up the photo and camera and looking at the steering wheel. But after that, you don't care. You just get me to the place. Outcome. Outcomes, what matters for agents, for the kind of workflow. So for that, you have to rebuild and reimagine what the internet is going to look like.
So it looks like I was successful in convincing Satish, because right before this one, we shared our own experience with the AI browser, right? Because OpenAI, Perplexity of the world, that they released the AI browser for agentic capability. But to me, that's like a more gimmick, right? But so we stay on the security and then privacy and then safety. I do believe, everything Chi and then Satish talked about is real in the sense that you have agents are going to operate, or see the world in a totally different way, right? A lot more context, right? Instead of attention is all you need, it's context all you need, right? But at the same time, one thing that's still going to be the same, or each one of you, whether you're working in the enterprise as an employee or as a consumer, you still care whether it's safe, right? Otherwise, it's not an interesting game. So that's part of the reason, another reason you wanted a Norton Neo. Now, we talked a lot about, the two of you talked a lot about the timing. I still wanted to play devil's advocate for a second. Why this is a good timing? In the sense that it's not like agents are left and right out there running, right? Do you see that this is the best timing and why? And then I wanted to ask you one specific question. We all know tokens are still very expensive, right? Every companies, every CEOs I know, they're all complaining about how much, Anthropic of the world are charging, is charging them. So given that tokens are still at premium pricing, is this kind of going to slow down the growth of agents? Like, how to think about this? I would love the two of you to comment on it.
You want to go first?
Look, I think the answer is, if the value is in there, of course. The basics of investment and ROI is not going to change just because it is AI. Enterprise in 2025, a lot of CIOs and others spent science projects and innovation budgets. And a lot of AI companies took that and said that is ARR. It's not going to be the case unless we're able to deliver value. So unless the token dollars are delivering value that is an order of magnitude more than what humans could do, then the answer is no. And 2026, we are already seeing that. Now the real question is, how do you create value? And that starts by starting with why as opposed to what and how. Yes, it is fun to watch a browser getting navigated automatically by the agent, but what's the point? What does it do? So we have taken a deliberate approach here. What we have done is, first, focus only on internet workflows. And why is that? Because internet only means we are not touching the intranet system of record, which means security people don't need to wake up. Because waking security people up is a bad thing. You want them to sleep, right? These are not like people that you want to wake. So they're sleeping, which means we are doing. Number two, we become a data provider. Look, freshness matter, but not if it is not accuracy. Accuracy is more important than freshness in the world of data. However, if you can provide accuracy and freshness, it will become more valuable. For example, the inventory of, let's say, US applied new tariffs on a country, and Toyota is trying to figure out they need to move the supply chain from country 1 to country 2. Now this is a function of figuring out who are the providers, what are their reviews, what are their on-time shipment capabilities. There's a bunch of research that needs to happen. Now this research, the fresher, the better. But more accurate, fantastic. Now that is value. So you have to look for use cases where data equals value, freshness equals value. So you find use cases that are starting there and then go there. That is the second thing, start with the why. And the third part is, be very ambitious, because this industry is changing so fast. It is absolutely true that we may not have the right time. We might be still early. If you are too early, you could become a science project. But you know what? If you're too late, you'll become a commodity. So you don't know how to time it. So all you can do is to make sure that you're humble enough, stay close to ground and keep delivering value, and then keep building and iterating and improving as fast as possible. And the last thing is, don't be afraid of competition. I'm not afraid of Claude, I'm not afraid of OpenAI, I'm not afraid of any other startup, because we believe that all of these companies are trying to maximize token. Because frontier models have to develop as much as possible so that the token consumption goes up. Which means that in the world of web, they take a bunch of screenshots and feed everything to the model. But do you really need the most amazingly advanced model that is built to cure cancer to click a calendar? No. You can absolutely build fine-tuned model that you can locally host. You can fine-tune them to deliver high accuracy. So TinyFish has delivered like almost 89.9% accuracy on mind to web. And that we have done with a fine-tuned model that we are internally running now. So yes, the big models are required to understand, but if you don't need to send out to LLMs and you can run it internally, that can deliver fast, cheaper, and more accurate, why not? So you have to figure out how to build use cases where you're decoupling from LLM constantly, because now the denominator is small, which means the value equation is higher. So there are lots of things. Interestingly, you have to keep thinking that you have to pay for the business today, not be afraid of tomorrow, but at the same time, not be afraid to create the future that we think is going to happen and make it happen. It's not like the time engine is going to happen because Anthropic or OpenAI did it. It could be because of TinyFish in the world of web agent. That's the conviction that you have to have.
It's very interesting you said, one thing I took away is, even though the cost for tokens are very expensive, but there are alternative ways to lower the cost. Chi, any thoughts?
First of all, I think AI has become much, much better in the last 3 months. Honestly speaking, we try to use AI or agents to do a lot of codings last year as coding agents is one of the probably most mature verticals for using AI for. But since the beginning of this year, truly a lot of the production code that we contributed into our code base has been generated by AI, and the review process using AI is also very, a code review process has been very good as well. So first of all, I think in terms of the ROI of burning the token has become honestly much higher than last year as we firsthand experienced. So that's why actually one of the initiatives that we did in-house is we're giving for every single teammate, we actually are already giving like 10 agents out of box for them to do all of the work from coding to business marketing perspective, because we think it's worth burning those tokens. So I think compared to last year, it's just become very different. In terms of the timing itself, first of all, I very agree with Sahish mentioned, it's never a really good timing you can predict. We honestly think from our perspective, we have been very lucky already that we started this vision and development of the solution 1.5 years ago. And along the last 1 year, we see so many initiatives from the bigger companies, from payment processor like Stripe. They launched their solutions, Tempo, for example, and Google launched the UCP, A2A, AP2, and a bunch of other companies, also like OpenAI launched their ACP protocol. That's all happened in the last 6 to 12 months, which means that if we really think, will they all participate and do this 1.5 years ago? We don't. But it's just, I think sometimes timing or luck is also important to us. And in that case, based on like the kind of like the maturity of the infrastructure protocol that's not only startups like us, but bigger companies are pushing together, then the end-to-end workflow for agentic payments or agentic identity just become much more concrete and much more tangible than at that time when we started putting our thesis outside in the market. A lot of people ask us, why do we pick up this solution, this problem to solve, as many of them don't think it's that problematic at the time. So I think we just know that high levelly, this definitely is needed, but do we know in the last one year, so many things, so many push will happen from Google, from Stripe, from OpenAI? Honestly speaking, we don't. So that's why I think timing is a combination of directionally correctness plus some luck in the process. And then for us, how can we maneuver this timing and this type of uncertainty, as what Sahish mentioned, is we pick up the use cases and verticals that we see some of the concrete demands from people. So one example I can share here is we started as an agentic payment solution, and then we realized, oh, identity and governance is so important to make the end-to-end payment flow trustworthy and willing to be adopted by our customer. That's the initial step. But then when we go to talk to some enterprise partners and design partners, we realize sometimes the challenge even is not approaching the payment itself. It's just already at the identity piece, at the governance piece, they already have some challenge. Then we realize, oh, the solution we are building as a unified stack may have some verticals or some solutions we can start using partial of that stack to solve. Then that will give us a lot of feedback on, for example, from enterprise internal perspective, they want to make sure two departments are not crossing over some of the sensitive materials, like engineering team, for example, probably don't want to give them the access to financial operation data and documents in that process. And actually, that's just part of that's honestly is a solution our identity tag or stack can solve in this process. So how can we maneuver some of the near-term demands from the customer side to help polish the product and solution we're building to expand to ultimately like the long end-to-end payments vision and payment solution we're building is something I think we're kind of like being more on customer obsessed side, just to listen to what they want and then build a solution together with them.
Okay, so we probably have about 10 minutes, right? I wanted to switch the topic a little bit. I have two part-time jobs. One is I teach at Stanford, and education is something that dear to my heart. I have some topic to you. The other part-time job I have is actually I'm a professional selfie person. So I wanted to take a selfie first. Let's see. Okay.
All right.
Sorry, I have to do my job.
We have group photo at the end.
Okay, but this is my part-time job. So I wanted to hear from you, right? Both of you are founder, CEO. What are